If you're thinking of touring Europe or moving to Europe for work, for studies, for a business visit, then you definitely will need a Schengen visa. And a Schengen visa is a visa that allows you entry into the 27 Schengen countries. And this is definitely because of the recent entry of Croatia. And for this, you will need to go to your consulate or the embassy back home to apply for that visa. Also, VFS processes some of the Schengen visas, so you definitely need to do your own research depending on where you're located at the time of application of a Schengen visa. So you can apply for a Schengen visa if you're coming for tourism purposes, which is usually a shorter process and usually can take anything between 15 working days to process, or even less depending on the backlog of any consulate or embassy. And it can take all the way up to maybe 6 months, especially if you're applying for a long-term Schengen visa. And especially, for example, if you're coming to Portugal from Kenya, then you would need to send your documents to the consulate in Maputo, which takes quite a little bit of time before it can be processed. It's actually quite a lot of time because sometimes it could take all the way to 6 months depending on the backlog that is in the consulate of Maputo. So what do you need to know when you're applying for a tourist visa? If you're applying for a tourist visa, then you need to put your documentation in order, and the generic documents that are requested by any one of the Schengen countries that you would want to visit would be your passport, your proof of accommodation, proof of financial means, proof of a flight itinerary. Maybe if you're being invited by someone, then they need to send you an invitation letter as well as their address and where you're gonna be staying and the reason for your travel as well as the duration of your travel. Now you would need to apply for that visa, and you need to obviously fill in an application form which you can actually find online. You just basically need to type Schengen application form and you can see what details that are requested of you, and then you would need to also pay a fee for that visa. Usually for adults it ranges from 80 euros and for kids could be around 40 or 45 euros, and you then can make an application for an appointment in the consulate or the embassy for which you're going to be applying for that visa. Now please note, if it is for tourism purposes and you're planning to visit quite a number of countries within your visit, then you would need to actually apply for that visa in the country for which you will be landing in, or the country for which you find that you will be staying the longest, because usually the Schengen visas have a caveat where you can only stay a maximum of 90 days within 180 days. And people usually get confused about this math, because what does that even mean? There is usually a Schengen calculator which I will leave on the description box below as well. I will show it to you so that you can be able to understand exactly how they calculate this number of days, and this is also dependent on the first point of entry in any of the Schengen countries. Now if you apply for this visa and you land in your first country and you would possibly want to stay longer than 90 days, then and you want this extended, this has to be really proven. The reason as to why you want to extend your tourist visa, whether maybe it's for personal reasons or something happened and you need to keep staying in that country, this is very dependent on you, and you have to check the laws of the country that issued that visa. The reason as to why I say this is, for example, if you're coming to Portugal from Kenya, usually you would need to apply for a Schengen tourist visa through the Greece embassy. So the Greece embassy issues this visa, and when you come to Portugal, unfortunately you cannot actually extend that visa because it's not recognized as something that was issued by the Portuguese government. So you need to be very careful about about that. Now, can you work using a tourist Schengen visa? No, you cannot work or do any other business because this tourist visa is wholly for tourism purposes, and you cannot be able to use it for work or for business. So let nobody lie to you about that. Now, if you're looking to come in and maybe work or study, then you will be applying for a long-term visa, and it is most likely that you would be given a type D visa, and this allows you entry into the country that you're going to work or study. It could be also various countries that maybe you're going to study as well, especially if you're coming for things like Erasmus, but the visa needs to be issued by the country for which is your first landing point. So once you get that visa, the long-term visa, it's usually maybe given for a period of 3 months, for which when you land in your first country or the country that you're going to work or study, then you would need to contact the authorities and be able to get a residence card that is valid maybe for 1 year or 2 years and is renewable over time, and you can be able to utilize it as means of maybe work or studying, and you can use that residence card to also travel across the Schengen region, and you have to use that residence card against your passport. So you cannot just travel with the residence card alone. You do need to travel with your passport in hand, and you have access to the 27 countries within the Schengen region without having to apply for a new visa. So you would possibly get either a single entry visa or a double entry visa or a multiple entry visa. Be very careful with this, because if you are given a single entry visa, it means that if you leave the Schengen region, then you have no other way of coming in despite your visa still being valid. If it is double entry, once again, if you leave twice, then there's no way. But if you have a multiple entry visa, then you definitely have access to the Schengen region multiple times, and you can be able to maybe leave and come back for as many times as possible. And if, for example, maybe you're waiting for your residence card to be processed, then this can be a beneficial thing. So if you're thinking of maybe going to start your work and maybe after 1 month you want to go back to your own country, yet you are still doing your process of your residence card, then perhaps you can maybe visit back Kenya and then come back with a multiple entry visa and not a single entry. Double entry could work, especially maybe if you're going once, but then again, you know, you don't want to take those chances as well. So be very careful with the entries because they really do matter. So the Schengen region visa is pretty easy to apply for and very straightforward. And some people usually ask, will I have to be interviewed? In most cases, you really do not need to go for those in-depth interviews that maybe other countries, for example, in Kenya, if you're going to the US, then you would need to do an interview and as to the reason as to why you want to actually go there. But within the Schengen region, usually your documents speak for themselves. So if the documents are not in order, then this would be a super fire way of being disqualified for sure. And if your reason as to why you want to come to the Schengen region is not clear, then you will definitely be disqualified. So it is a very straightforward process, and it's very important to note that if you also overstay your welcome, you can either be fined or you can be denied entry into the Schengen area for a period of maybe even 4 to 5 years, depending on what exactly happened. So please be very careful about that, because if you overstay your welcome, then you know things are not going to go very well for you. So usually you can check online and see the location of the consulates or the embassies for which country you want to apply for your visa, depending on the reason as to why you want to visit the Schengen region, and make an appointment. Also email them ahead of time so that you can get all the information that you need, clarify everything so that when you go for your appointment, it's smooth sailing, especially when you're in Kenya, and you definitely will get an answer, because yes, they do answer. They might take a bit of time, but they do definitely answer. So I do hope that this little video once again has been of help to you and has given you some bit of insight of what to expect when you're applying for Schengen visa. Please go ahead and leave your question on the comment section below and I'll be happy to answer you. And if you also have any other useful thing that you would like to add, please go ahead and add it on the comment section. And I hope that your process is going to be smooth sailing. And until next time, please make sure that you join my membership here on YouTube. I will be sharing exclusive content about moving to Europe and my insight, and you also get a chance to sit with me and I will give you all the insights that I know to the depth of my knowledge, and I'll be more than happy to assist you make that move or do that tour that you have been saying that you will do for the longest period, right? Anyways, until next time, have a good one. Bye now.